So once again, we have been having such a good time. I forgot to hit record, but I want to say hello to Free Thought. He has a couple of books out. He is a writer, he's an entrepreneur, and a coach. He is a very good friend of mine. We've been talking for the last couple of hours. We've been going on and giving very good pieces of information. And I just want to welcome everybody for tuning in to the Phoenix Group second annual Writers Teleconference. So, Free, we left off at what got you, we talked about it off air, but now we're back on air. So you're going to have to tell some of those stories again. You're going to tell some of the stories again. But tell what really got the bug. How did you get that writing bug?
So I've always been a reader. Always been an avid reader. And I got more into poetry in high school and college. I started actually writing in college. Part of that was an exercise to be more creative. I felt like I was very logical, but I also wanted to develop the creative side of my brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started writing poetry, and I had to experiment. I had to find my voice. I had to find what was comfortable for me to talk about. I also had to live some life. My first book, Just Mad Rantings, didn't come out till actually about, I would say, 15 years after I started writing, because I had to live life and I had to really find my voice and I had to write good poetry, not just poetry, and honestly, yes, poetry is subjective, but there is good poetry and there's not good poetry. And honestly, I would say that I'm not saying I'm the greatest, but I developed with practice and time my own voice and have been able to get it across, I think, in a very poetic way. Some of my inspirations have been Nikki Giovanni, Jill Scott, my uncle Larry Neal, Quincy Jones, Charles Bukowski, Gwendolyn Brooks, all these, Langston Hughes, all these, great poets that had a voice that were unique. I will say I especially lean towards Charles Bukowski. He is a German writer, older white guy. He's gone now, but he lived a hard life. And he was an alcoholic and a womanizer, a gambler. And he found writing later on in his life. And he was very prolific. And once he started writing, it's almost like he never put the pen down. And he has so many books out, and even a movie based on one of his books called Factotum. And I really was able to relate to him in his life struggles and in the way he was so brutally honest with his struggles, with his vices, and I kind of reached for that honesty with Just Mad Rantings. It was so honest, I almost didn't want to put it out because there's things in there that, like I said, it's not 100% me, but there's a big chunk of some of the decisions in life past that I've taken in it. And I did that on purpose. It was a cathartic release. And I didn't want my first book to be fluff. So Just Mad Rantings, it actually started off Love Letters and Other Mad Rantings was the original title. And I was going to write love letters or letters to people that I felt like ex-girlfriends that I didn't do right by, or my children, my family, and people in general. And I just wanted to, how they say, give them the roses before you're gone, But as I got into it, I found that it wasn't letters that was coming to mind. It was the words and experiences that was coming to mind. And so I don't know about other people, but part of my poetry process is number one, I'm a slow writer. Unfortunately, sometimes I've tended to wait for inspiration to hit me. And what we really need to do, especially as poets and writers, is, and I've mentioned a couple times, is chase the muse. You know, find that inspiration. Look outside. You know, one of the pages or one of the poems in my books, I'm looking outside and at the tree during this season when the leaves are gone. And I'm looking at this bald headed tree and thinking about, life and stuff. So find that muse and chase it down. And so I really try to do that, but I also try not to push it because poetry can be um, fabricated. It can be fluffy. It can be bullshit. It can be because people feel like this is not a story and it's poetry, and because some of the rules of poetry can be lax, that they can just do whatever. But you really should know the rules of poetry first, and then relax with it. And also let it come naturally. I picture when I liken my poetry process to rain. So when I figure out kind of what I want to write about, the words just kind of mentally just rain down in place. And I can tell if I've written a good piece by how many scratch outs I have. If it's not that many scratch outs, it's decent. If I had to go back and scratch out a whole bunch of stuff and change a lot of stuff, then it's being, fabricated and it's not as organic and real. I have to look at that.
Mhm. That is really good. I'm glad you brought that up about, poetry can be, fabricated. And it never, no, never think about that. And that's something I never really thought about. I too, when I write poetry, the words have to hit me. Like I can be outside and I think of something like, oh, that sounds really good. I'm going to put that on paper. And sometimes I forget, but I remember key points of what sparks my memory. Like, okay, I'm gonna put that back there. I'm gonna write that because that was a big piece of what I was feeling at the moment. I'll see something to give me the inspiration, and I've done that. Like last week, I went to a reading. They had a writers group, a meet and greet, and people were up there reading their work, and sitting there and just being in the bookstore and being around these other writers gave me that inspiration to write something because I was feeling, I just got this feeling, even though I got out there and read my old piece of jazz. I got that in the book that's out, that poetry collection. I too have to do the same thing. I start writing about something and then it turns into poetry or it turns into prose. And it just depends on what I'm feeling at the moment. Is it a poem or is it some prose or is it an essay? Because I had to learn the difference of that. And I write because I'm inspired to write. And I'm not classically trained writer. You know what I mean? I did business writing in school. You know what I mean? So business writing is totally different. And I wanted to touch on that today about business writing, but that's so boring. That's not what I wanted to talk about today, but it is so boring. We'll talk about that next month when we have our business teleconference, whatever. But but you made a good point when you said that you wrote and was inspired, and the work that you've done, and the people you were influenced by. Now, I'm not going off subject, but this is something I've been researching. I do research and I do it for characters, and then I do it for some of my own work, for my own personal space work. Past life, people do past life regression, and your connection with that German writer. When did he die? That's what I want to ask. When did he die?
Good question. If you give me half a second, I can pull it up on my phone.
Yeah.
But that's interesting that you would ask that because I've wondered. I already feel where you're going, and there have been times that I've read his work, and I've been like, damn, are we, like you said, living the same life? Is he, channeling some of his energy and words through me? interesting that you would ask that.
And I'm gonna say, and the reason why I asked that question, because we do gravitate, and we are here. I believe we are souls traveling in different times, in different realities, different realms, and I think your connection with that writer could be some past life regression. If he died before you were born, that could be some type of connection. If he
No, March 9th, 1994.
Okay, so still, you all still shared some type of connection. You get what I'm saying? You could have been somebody that was there with him at the time. Who knows? But for you to have this connection with him, there's something really strong about that, that you are, because it's, how can I put this? It's very unusual for African American to admit that a white or European writer was an influence, because I love work of Stanley Kubrick. I am.
Oh,
I like.
When I read Clockwork Orange, I was like, "Oh my God, are you
Yes,
serious?"
right. And I was a kid when I first saw that. So I love those type of writings. I always loved the style of Vincent Price. I always loved the guy who wrote The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and Lord of the Rings.
That was one of my favorites too.
Those were my favorite books, and I've always been attracted to that. But another period I was attracted to was the Harlem Renaissance. I love Zora Neale Hurston and Baldwin and Hughes and all of those different writers. I met Nikki Giovanni. She's not from the Harlem Renaissance. She was born afterwards, of course. But Gwendolyn Brooks. I loved all of them. Maya Angelou. They had a voice that was so profound that when they spoke or when they wrote their poetry, it's like you can see where they were going with it, and it was not just studying, it was just a piece of your soul that felt fulfilled when you read this, like, okay, I can connect with that. I feel what they're writing. And the same thing when it comes to reading the other writers I mentioned. He's like, I can connect, but in some off weird way, I connected with Clockwork Orange. Don't know how. Don't know what connected me with that, but I connected to that in such a way that it's like, oh, I love this, and that inspired me to write some things that I've written in fiction writing, So when you write, sit down and write, and you do your poetry, like you say, you have a muse. What prompts you to write prose, or have you wrote any prose?
Yeah, definitely. In my first book, I had called Poetry and Short Prose, so I do have some prose pieces, and I have some haikus. The prose pieces came from thoughts that were a little bit longer than poetry, but not long enough for a short story or definitely not a full book.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, one of the prose pieces I have is called it's about, while I look for it, I can tell you what it's about. It's about planning out your life, and when what happens when you're trying to figure out what your life is going to be about. Or one of my other favorite prose pieces I have is based on the movie What Dreams May Come with Robin Williams, and what that imagery of what heaven is, and not only what the imagery of what heaven is, but his journey to go down to hell and get his wife who had committed suicide. In fact, it's called, is this the one? Yeah, Are There Any Tears in Heaven? And I asked that question. I was thinking about it because, they talk about heaven as such a joyful place. Once you get to heaven, you're reunited with all your loved ones, and it's supposed to be exactly what it looks like to you, and it's a great place. But are there any points where you're like, that you feel sad, and so I pictured, what if somebody got to heaven but they didn't fulfill their journey or live up to their potential. And the one of the examples I use is, they say when you get to heaven and God opens a room and says, this is everything I have for you, You know, you're like, well, but my life was hard. I didn't have this stuff. And it's like, well, you didn't believe that you could have it and you didn't do what you needed to do to get it. So there it is. And I thought about that like, wow, is that a sad moment? How would you feel, you know? And so, yeah, all that is to say is I do have thoughts that wouldn't translate into poetry, but weren't enough for a short story.
I like that. I love that because, I never thought about that. You know what I mean? And sometimes I write when my thought process in prose is, okay, I'm not rhyming and I'm not writing a story. Okay, it's prose. That's like, okay, that's what this look like, you know, or and you know, sometimes because I tell everybody in a minute. I am not one of those academic types that everything I say have a right conversation behind it. I'm not giving credentials behind, you know what I mean? I'm not quoting something or talking about, getting formal training. For my formal training, I don't refer to that. You get what I'm saying? I do a lot of things. I'm a hands-on person. So when I do things hands-on, what you see is me because I actually took the time to learn that particular thing, and it's a hands-on type of thing. I can tell you, I went through all types of classes, schools, workshops, but my experience is this is what it is. You know what I mean? I studied enough, and what you see is what you get. Basically, that's how I do it. And when you said the whole thing about you get an idea and it's not a story, but it's not poetry. I love when you know what I mean. I love that you say that because you're actually putting it out there and you actually being honest. Because see, sometimes people will go the long right, like what I just said about putting the academics behind it, and they get to give it a whole spiel of academia behind the answer. Just give me short and sweet. That's pretty much as writers, and I just gave this example to somebody today. Jonathan. Jonathan had to work, and that's why he didn't get on to, at this time for the conference. And I told him, I said, it's so funny. Writers, when it comes to communicating, we miss out details, but yet we can detail in writing. How is that? You know what I mean? How is that? Hold on, I've got to get this light on because it's getting dark over here. So let me turn my light on right quick. Okay. So basically, what I was getting at with the writing, with about details. Sometimes people think that poetry, because there are some people that don't like poetry, and I heard someone say that poetry is an easy way out of writing a full story. What do you say about that?
Well, again, poetry is suggestive. I did wrestle with that thought process early on. Again, with every artist, you have to know your strengths and your weaknesses. And so, one aspect of poetry is that yes, you can get the thoughts out quicker. You can tell a whole story in a poem that takes 3,000 words in somebody else's book. If you write the right poem, like say some of these stories about love and heartbreak and people cheating on them, and you can say all of that in a poem and have the same exact impact. Um, Poetry is not the shortcut. To be able to take a whole thought and, one of the luxuries of a novelist and a playwright And, is that they can add all these details and they can really elaborate and they can take their time. Poetry, in fact, I wrote a poem about that. Poetry grabs you quickly and takes you for a quick ride and then drops you off. But you get the same exact thrill as if you read a whole book if you can appreciate the poems and the words and look deeper into what they're saying. Poetry requires more of a critical thought process. And I'm not saying that one form is better than another, but it's interesting that you bring it up because I thought about that. And it's just, to me, it's a matter of I don't need to use a whole lot of words if I can get my point across. And there's something a little bit more challenging in that to me than actually writing a whole story that you can let the details flow and it fills in for you as it goes along. And, it turns out to be great. I'm not tripping on it. But there is something to being concise and to giving a view, a whole picture in a little statement. There's something to that.
That is really cool. That is really cool because I like to write both. I like to write fiction, nonfiction. I like to write poetry and prose. And the latest project that I started creating is nonfiction piece. And as I said in the last hour, we were talking with Kiana and Isha. I was working on something about bullying and abuse. And in the book, I have added a couple of pieces of affirmations. I added a couple of pieces of, some what is it? What's the, not really like joke, but kind of like something to ease up the reading because it is intense. Reading, what I'm putting together is an intense piece of work because for one, I am opening up old wounds that has been, they healed, but I'm going back and reliving some things I'm writing and sharing about. Two, I'm telling part of my family history that some people are not going to like. And three, it will touch other people that are affected by this. So being at all this intensity is going to be in this book, in this piece of work I'm doing. I also like to joke. I also like to lighten things up. And I use part of my storytelling and part of my poetry and affirmations to lighten things up at the end of each chapter. I want to have it break it up. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much what my intention is. So I think that is part of, a multitasker multitasker writing, author. I believe that is a blessing because I truly believe I can do both because I'm a storyteller. But yet at the same time, I can also relay a message of expertise without fabricating a story. But at the same time, I can lighten it up. And that's what I believe when people make that statement that I said, that they think it's the short way or the easy way out of writing a story. No, I think it is, like you said, it's a quick ride. Would you say it's a quick ride?
It's an exercise in being concise. It's an exercise in being able to give across the same emotion as a story would. Maybe not the same detail and action, but the same emotion.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to have that same emotion from reading one of my poems about heartbreak that you would if you read a full novel, or be there. And even taking it a step further, look at haikus. Haikus are some of the shortest poems ever, but some of them say the deepest things, and there's somewhat of an art and a practice to that.
And you know what? And this is what I see, and this is what I always equate this to: storytelling, novel writing, and poetry. Novel writing is, I always compare it to like dating, and not just dating, but relationships and dating. With a novel, you're courting. You're courting your reader. You're courting your reader, and you're giving them all of this stuff that they want to see, they want to read, they want to get engaged, and you like it's like you have to get them engaged to even keep reading the book. That's pretty much what novel writing is to me. And there's nothing wrong with that because some people need that in order to fall in love. In order to fall in love with the story or with something, you got to court them. Then you have other people that don't take all that. And to me, that's how I look at it with poetry. Poetry is the same thing that a novel is, but it's more intense. It's more exciting. And I won't say more exciting, but it can be more exciting. It's more intense. It's for the people that you can engage, but it don't take all of that to engage me. I want to hear. I want to read some poetry. I'm gonna get the same effect. You're courting me, but you're gonna take you. It don't take all that because I get to read into your soul in a matter of minutes than it will take me to read a whole book.
And that's exactly right. So what that it's an excellent transition or segue. I have a poem. I told you I have a poem that addresses this exact issue. And it's
Wow.
musically inclined. So I'm gonna read it to you real quick, and then I'm gonna tell you the thought process behind musically inclined. So this is called Something for the Poets. All right. The soul of the writer is personified in the poet. Us with our short attention spans, consistently pursuing the muse, such an elusive nymph. Like the juvenile delinquent running from the law, so we give chase. Catch one, trip and tackle, yelling, hold still, manacles at the ready. Captured and cuffed, transported from mind to line. Another one booked for the masses, and then back on patrol. Ever vigilant the poet is, while the novelist and the playwrights craft their worlds, invite us to stay a while, get to know them, care about them. We marry them till the end, for better or worse. But the poet grabs us quickly, intimately, then lets us go. A one night stand of sorts, many times the fickle lover, like a pollinating bee.
Yeah, I like that. Is cool. I like that. That is really awesome. You know, yeah. I mean, it's a that could go. You have to really be open and engaged to hear those words you just written. You know what I mean? Those words you just read, like something for the poet, and that's exactly how we feel when we're writing. And that is one of those pieces that our intention is to reach you and affect you in a way that you don't have to read a whole story to get there. And I think poets, and that's the difference with poets and novel writers. I think poets are romantics. And we can court you in such a way that we can touch you far more, we can touch you quicker than giving you a whole story to get you there.
Exactly. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, and then when this poem came to me, I was actually dating a playwright, and
Wow.
and we talked about we actually had a similar discussion about poetry and versus a longer form. And so that's what came to me is that, we're all writers, we're all sharing a bit of ourselves. Um, and a playwright we need plays. Love to see a play on stage. We need screenwriters. Love to see movies. I love to read books. I love to read a full story. But I also like the poetry because I can still be mentally captivated and it can be in and out, you know. And as a poet, that was part of my thing is I want to get in and out. I want to touch you quickly. My poems aren't very long. I am tossing around one that I might start an epic poem called A Reunion of Souls. And that might be a little bit longer because I really want to talk about a reunion of souls. And I want to talk about what that means on a heavenly field and on this physical field and just kind of just really I have a vision of what that looks like. But yeah, I love writing poetry because it's quick and it's deep and like you said, it's romantic. I do find that I can be more romantic in my poems than sometimes I've shown. And, maybe that's because E keep popping up and shit. I have to sit E's ass down so Free and Emmanuel can come out and be romantic because E be throwing up walls. E be like, you tripping, get your ass out of here. We ain't got time for that.
Right, because you know why? Because E, just like Goldie, they are people that don't want. They're guarding your feelings. They're guarding you from being vulnerable. And everybody have that dark side to them, and we do name the dark side. And sometimes our dark side can be open and love people because, like, I go by Goldie loves you. Goldie do love, but Goldie also is hard to love. You know what I mean? And and I love that because poetry is romantic. Poetry is also poetry can be anything. Poetry can be romantic. Poetry can be political. Poetry can be religious, spiritual. All of that. That can be all of that and tells the stories without getting a big old book and reading all of that. And some people, like I said, to me, writing novels is a courtship of readers. You're courting. You want to court your reader. Poetry is, I want to romance you. I want to do more than court you. I want you to stay. I'm going to date you all the time. Novels, once they're done, you can pick the story. You can talk about it. It's like a relationship. You talk about it, but poetry can touch you in so many ways. It's like they love me. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, they felt me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And to me, that's the different. That's how I get the different styles of writing. To me, novels and you tell stories. You want to affect people with your stories. You want people to take something away from it. But to me, in poetry and prose, you are engaging with them. You not taking away. We give it to each other. I want you to hear me. I want you to feel me, but I also want to feel you by the words I'm giving you. So in a way, it's generous. That's how I see it. That's how I see poetry. And I see it as generosity.
Exactly, and that's why when you have writers that say poetry is easy or it's the easy way out, again, if you've really taken the time to practice and like I said, I started writing poetry in college, but it took me, 20 years to find my voice and to practice writing stuff that was empty, to practice, going into my feelings and really saying, okay, this is what's real, and I want to share this, but I want to share it quickly. We as people tend to have short attention spans, so kind of part of it is you want to give words that people can remember and that will touch them. And with a story, you remember the story, but with poems, you might remember that poem or that story because it's quick and it touched you just like that, and it'll stay with you, So, as with any art, you must practice your craft, and you must find your own voice and your own way, and you must take from what you know. You must, if you borrow, you must be able to borrow with a critically thinking mindset, not just, one of the things, I have a poem that I talk about erotic poetry. And I think there's a place, I have no problem with erotic poetry. I've read plenty of erotic literature and erotic poetry in my day. But I have a poem that talks about erotic poetry because there's a lot of what I call verbal exhibitionist. And erotic poetry really, with Def Jam's poetry thing, and then they had the I don't remember what the other. There was another show that was really a lot erotic poetry, and they had a whole erotic show about it. So erotic poetry at one point, I think it was 90s or 2000s, really took off, and everybody wanted to do it and be doing it. But what I find is that there's no sexiness, there's no subtleness, and I say this in my poem. We all know that what we do in the bedroom, and we know how it feels, and we know as kinky, as freaky as we can get. We all know this. So it's not shocking to go on stage and say it. But many erotic poets think it is. and they want to go on stage and they want to shock people and they want to really do all of this, but it's not sexy. And it's not even erotic. It's just a bunch of words strung together trying to be sexy and erotic. And I think erotic poetry, when it's the most sexiest, is more subtle, and it's more cleavage and not the whole breast and nipple. You know what I'm saying? It's the lingerie, it's the high heels and the satin robe instead of the thong. You know what I'm saying? And I wish more erotic poets could take that time to actually be sexy instead of trying to be erotic.
And you know what? And I'm so glad you said that, because I've heard a couple of my friends that do it, and they do a lot of erotic poetry. What's his name? Tim. Tim, you know Tim, that he's the big guy, dreads. He's a partner with Mace, with the guy that sells the t-shirts. He does erotic poetry, but when he do it, he leads to imagination. And I'm so with you, because erotic poetry it's just like how strip teasing used to be. Erotic poetry should be like a strip tease. I'm teasing you with my words so I can engage you, so you can want more of that. You want to lead to imagination. And that's what I think, even with poetry. I mean, sometimes people with poetry, like I was somewhere and I was reading poetry and it was too long. To me, poetry should not be 4 pages. That's not that's a story. You just wrote an essay that rhymed. Because after a while you lose people. Poetry is exactly what it is. It's short and sweet. It's short and sweet. It's telling a message. If you're going to do that much writing, you got all that to say, then you may want to rethink how you write it. Maybe you want to break it up. Maybe you want to do in parts, or things like that. Because I could tell you, I was that. I had to do it several times because I was engaging my audience, and I started seeing how I was losing them after being up there. People don't realize, doing spoken word, if you were on stage more than 5 minutes, 5 minutes is too long. People are like, okay, it's only.
Yeah, if you're saying a long piece, you're right. You do need to think about, can you break this up, or it has to be something political that can get people fired up. You can't do a long piece just on fluff or erotica or even relationships, because everybody has these relationship issues. So, if you're getting caught up in your own ego of writing and you're doing a long piece on a relationship, you'll lose people. You'll get here and there and throughout, depending on what you're saying. But a long piece maybe could be political. It could be something that fires people up if there's a call to action in the piece.
Absolutely.
It depends on what the purpose. But really, yes, with poetry, you want to get in and out. You want to touch them. You want to give them a taste, And, like you said, with erotic poetry, it should be cabaret, not Magic City. You know what I'm saying?
Wait, hold on. Wait, we saying that because we're older, but I think let's put it in a younger term. They have reality shows, right? Poetry should be, let's compare this. It shouldn't be love and hip hop.
Right.
You know what I mean? Poetry should be more like, I don't know what reality shows out there you compare it to, but poetry should be, it shouldn't be like a reality show. You shouldn't sleaze it down to get people to get engaged. Because what happens is our younger generation have become desensitized to connection. And that's why we have the raunchy erotic poetry, all balls out, freak nasty topic. That's why we have it's become disconnection. And this is why I talk about it so often, about us being elders. We in our 40s. We are elders. We are becoming every day. We're more and more elders. Yes, we are. I know you put your head down, but we're elders.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. Ain't
Uh-huh.
nothing to tell you. I just didn't want to admit it, damn it.
I
Okay.
Yeah, we are, and we are responsible. We're responsible for these younger generations, and that's what the elders are. People, the younger generation should be looking up to us, not us competing with them. They should be able to come to us for guidance, and this is why I'm so putting this out there with this writers conference. I want them to see us being who we are as elders, as writers, as this, and then it's going to bring us to our next point um, about writing networks. We should be able to lead other younger people into inspiring writing. To be inspired, to get inspired. Let's cultivate. Let's help you cultivate your skill. And at the same time, of course, we should be seen as elders, because what happened is the reason why they don't have respect for us in general, we have become their equal. We made them our equal. We've made them our equal in everything just about. And giving them that voice, it's okay, because they come here with all this mouth and everything. We have to come at them a certain way that we still gonna get that respect, because for one, that's what it is. We some of us become so afraid to offend them. They know that, so they use it as a chip. Like, all right,
And I'm used to teaching and dealing with kids, and I would tell them, especially high school, I'm not your friend, and I don't care about hurting your feelings. I'm telling you the truth, and I'm telling you for your own good, and I'm telling you because I've been there, and I know, and might be a little bit different, but the universal result is if you do that, this is what's gonna happen. And I know I don't want to be your friend. And yeah, some parents, sometimes I get in trouble because I call them these new parents. You know, they do want to be their kids' friends, and they do are very sensitive and want. Sometimes it's good to let your kid have creative freedom and expression, but too much is too much. But we can get into parenting and all of that another day.
absolutely, because we could talk about that forever and ever. And so this is the point when I say about writers networks, and this is the piece I wanted to get on. And thank you so much for sharing your poetry and reading your poem, reading that from out your book. Because people need to hear this, and I really hope that we can engage more people after this. But when we get to the writers network, and I want to talk about it, is we don't connect with each other enough. And when I say we don't connect with each other enough, I'm talking about other aspiring writers. You and I know many writers, right? And the group that we have today is not even 1% of the people we know that are writers. You get what I'm saying? And so when it comes to networking, there are different ways to get to networking. And how do we connect with the rest of them? How do we connect? How can I put this? I'm not really interested in connecting with more people our age. We have enough of me and you right now, and Isha and Kiana and Rita. 6 of us. We are a network right now. We need to. How do we get to networking that we are reaching younger aspiring artists? How do we get to them? How do we draw them in to networking with us? That is one of the things I really wanted to ask the question, because I can sit up and give you all type of resources and everything, but since we're going to be wrapping up soon, how do we network with another generation?
Well, part of that goes to, like I was saying, maybe it was in the last one, tapping into school programs and internships. Um, we also need to have innovative ideas for what we want to do. For example, we mentioned it before, purposing, multi-purposing. We have young people have access to and expertise in this new technology. And they can video something and really make it look really good and professional. So we need to figure out, you know, who are the writers among the young people, and we have stuff that's written. Is it interesting to them? And would who are the not only who are the writers, who are the actors, and who are the technical people among them, and rally them to try to form something. So if you have these video skills, let's use it, and let's also rally them behind entrepreneurship. So let's start a media company and take your skills and these stories and actually do something with it. Good way to get young people involved and rallied around is to let them report about what's going on in their world. Their neighborhoods and schools, their families. People love to talk about themselves. Period. In general, people. So get the young people talking about what's important to them. And how can, like I said, what they're doing actually benefit them. So if they have an actual concrete product, they blow up on YouTube and Twitter, and they get hundreds of views because they're friends, and then they share, and we can show them how that can translate into a business. If you get 100,000 views on YouTube, YouTube will talk to you about paying you. They need to understand that. You can go on, like you said, these other streaming sites, set up your own media thing, and actually have shows. And people have blown up just from doing their own videos. So if we want to reach out to young people, we need to know what our strengths are, know what their strengths are, give them an opportunity to talk about them, and give them a way to realize that talking about them in artistic ways and also hood ways, in creative ways, can make them money and can give them a voice, and they can have some impact, and they can do something with it. Young people need to know when we talk to them that, number one, it makes sense, and we're not just talking to hear ourselves talk, and that, how can they use the information that we're saying? The information that don't make sense and we just rambling on, then we lose them. So that's what I would say for how to get young people involved.
So basically, and I hear what you're saying, and what just dropped in my spirit as you were talking, writing mentors. Among the six of us that were to be on this weekend, now we have two more. We can be writing mentors. We can take on mentoring young writers and help them cultivate the relationship in a way that we are working with them. This is kind of where how we can reestablish our craft, our specialty. For we can have an admiration for it. We can have how can I put it? You know how we looked up to the poets before us and the writers before our time, in our time, how we looked up to them.
Right.
We as elders, I keep saying it, we have to reestablish that. I know you shaking your head, but it's not a dirty word. It's such a word that we do have a generation or two under us that we can reestablish that. I believe that in our time, it is disheartening to see that the people that are being looked up to are from reality TV, from these young people. Can any of them pick up a book of ours and follow us and want to follow us and want to hear what we have to say without us being a rapper, without us being taking selfies and putting and writing a book about it or being on a poll? You get what I'm saying? We can do that. We have to find ways to reestablish that.
Yeah. Just a matter of being persistent and being creative and being willing to go where they are, and even if we just grab two and ask them what their vision is and how do we, it's the same with coaching. In coaching, it's not ever about us, It's not about what we want, and it's about really caring about what our client wants to achieve. So if we approach it the same as with coaching, then yes, we do have an idea of the direction of youth and how we want to mentor and guide them. But we really need to think, okay, what do you want to do ultimately? Where are you trying to go? And what are your strengths? And how can I help you? And then we ease into, some of it is concrete upfront mentoring, but some of it is collaboration and partnership building. And, again, this generation is a little bit more savvy in terms of business and definitely in terms of technology. So we need to be able to implement both to really reach these young people and let them talk about them.
And I believe, and I see that, and I can see that happening. And so, because I remember back in the day, like I said, we have to reestablish the generational respect. And back in the day, we loved to be around older people and to hear the stories and hear how it used to be. But now it has turned into, I don't want to hear how it used to be because it started wearing people out. Because what happens is our generation, I can say our generation because I was one of them. We tend to use our history to shame the generations after us. We tend to make it seem like we were better than them. And we understood when we were told stories from history, we may have rolled our eyes at it or whatever, but we always took that story and respected it because we were like, wow, they painted a picture for us. They painted a picture for us, and we had a different type of understanding. The kids now are way more advanced than we were when we were their age. They are privy to more than what we were privy to. Now, be you right when you said we have to speak their language. We have to come down, not come down a level, but we still, with our prestige as elders, we have to reestablish our prestigious stand as elders. You know what I mean? And be that it's attractive for younger people to want to be around us. It's a voice that is necessary, that they want to hear what we have to say. They want to pick up our books and read it. They want to see what it's like. They want to know. And all it takes is for us to speak to them. Because what happens is we talk at them. When you start talking at someone, you lose them. So I believe that, to me, like I said, I think one way we can really do it, we can start engaging them is we can mentor. We can, like you said, we can reach one or two. That's a start. And we can reach them in a way that we're hearing them, we're dialoguing with them. They have business acumen. Let's hear what they have to say. Some that are in school writing, those that are in school writing and they're looking to work, like you said, internship. That is a way, but that's something we can definitely do to start a writers network. And I truly want to do more with that. And those that are looking at this, anybody that's interested and want to help us create that, please, by all means, let us know. You following us? You can follow us. You can see I'm Goldie Loves You on Twitter. You are DJ Free on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. Look under Phoenix Rise Productions, and you can see the videos that will be posted Monday from this past conference. As we're closing for the weekend because we ran over, and I'm so grateful for this. I'm so grateful because we have a lot of information that we have created, not just created, but brought our expertise in the last couple of hours and yesterday. Thank you so much for that. And do you have anything to say before we close?
Well, I appreciate you for doing this conference. I thought that you were doing it. I thought that was great. And, you say you finna do something, I'm like, all right, sign me up. So I was glad that you were doing this. I appreciate you for including me. And definitely just keep doing it, and we'll keep building these empires like we've been doing. And writers keep writing. Just do it. Just, I've always done my art starting with DJing and writing for the love. You know, sure, we'd all like to be rich and famous, but the bottom line is artists do it for the love. So just keep doing it for the love. Keep trying to reach and touch people, and it's gonna do what it do.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much. And something I did not include, we talk about writers' resources, but after this weekend, we have created a writers group on Facebook that we are going to be engaging with other writers, people that have joined us and are interested in joining our group. We're going to send out information to join the group. It's going to be open to the public after today, after tonight. We're going to open it up to everyone. So anybody that's aspiring to write and want to write, want to get some resources, writers' resources, where to start, please feel free to join the group. Also, as of Monday, this recording will be available on YouTube for a short period of time because we are going to put this within a package. All of our expertise, it will go into a package. And we are going to market it to sell. We're going to have other content that we are going to put together to sell. And this will just be pieces of the videos will be shown to market what we're selling. And then the proceeds of what we sell, we are going to donate and sponsor a youth to go to Cuba next year on an educational tour with Master Force. So I do want to thank everyone that joined us. Thank you so much, Free, for being my support and my co-host throughout this whole thing. You have been in there. You actually did well. I want to send love and light to Keisha. She did send me a message. She had to rush a cousin to the hospital, so she's been tied up with that the whole afternoon. So I'm just sending love and light to her. I want to thank Isha and Kiana. I want to thank Luana for trying to get in. She was having some technical difficulties, but that's okay. You're going to see more of all of us after this week. The intent is next year for our third annual Writers Conference, we will be in person. And those that will be open to being part of it, we're going to open it up in January. We're going to start looking for writers. We're going to start looking for a venue. We are going to host it here in Dubuque because there is a Writers Guild here. So we are going to open it up for everyone to participate. So as in January, you will get information so we can be 11 months in the planning stages. So thank you all once again. Free as anything you want to say before we close?
Nope. Tune in every Monday, 10 p.m. Central Standard Time, blogtalkradio.com/WUI for the Writing Under the Influence show. This week we have a poet, as we've been talking about poetry. His name is James Gordon. He goes by Greatest Poet Alive. So it'll be interesting to check him out. Goldie, please call in. And I've had a poetry show before, and last time what I did is I had another poet to call, and I was able to bounce them off of each other for some of their poems and some of their insights. So I would like to look at some of your Words from the Soul. Is that the name of it? Your poetry book, Words from the Soul?
Yes, Words from the Soul.
Okay, yeah, bring that to the table Monday and chime in on the poetry jam, please. And we'll start, doing more co-hosting and working together. But yes, people, stay tuned for Writing Under the Influence Media. The anthology is called Dear Cancer, the Anthology. So that will be available soon for you to support a nonprofit organization. And just keep writing. Keep writing.
Thank you, and thank you. And anyone who wants to follow me, I am Goldie Loves You, and most all of social media. If you need to find my links, you can go to about.me/Goldie Loves You. That give you all social media links to me. I am on Amazon. I have 3 books out on Amazon. The collective writings, Words of the Soul. You can look me up as A. Gregory or Goldie Loves You. You go look the link, And you will see my books. I have a fiction short story out there, The Harvest, Twin Horror, which is will be part of a like a series of books of a detective, and it's Chronicles of an Alcoholic Dick. So you're going to see more of those stories. Another story is coming out in December. You're going to see that as well. There's a lot of different information, a lot of different content that I have available. However, you will be able to see more of what I do. Just follow me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter. I am on Periscope. I'm on here on Blab. We will start in January. We will start Phoenix Media. We will do that in January. We will have a writer spotlight once a month, in addition to other businesses that we will be showcasing once a week. All right. So thank you all once again for tuning in. I love the fact that we are done. I was really apprehensive about this whole process because I didn't know, but it is so amazing to complete a second year of the teleconference. Thank you again, Free. Thank you to all of my guest speakers and all of those that came in. This will be up on YouTube soon. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Have a happy holiday. All right. Bye-bye.